Are we early?
Well,
That's good. That's a good sign. Us ministers, we just kind of get led around by our staff, so I never really know what time it is. But it is good to see everyone, and I first of all want to thank the Auditor General and her team for their work and recommendations. Obviously, they play a very important function in democracy. They're key to the integrity of our institutions, ensuring that public funds are used well and transparently, and their insights actually help refine and hone how we deliver services to Canadians. Aujourd'hui, je suis accompagnée de ministres Lightbound, McGuinty, Gull-Masty, ainsi que de secrétaires d'État langues pour discuter de la publication de 6 rapports importants de vérificateur général, chacun mettant en lumière des progrès réalisés et des domaines où nous devons encore nous améliorer. First, the audit report for the Canada-wide early learning and childcare system confirms that families are seeing benefits. Fees are down by about 50% on average across the country, and families are indeed saving thousands of dollars each year, with average daily costs now around $16.50 a day. And overall, about 112,000 new affordable spaces have been built, and these are very important and meaningful steps towards strengthening the foundation of early learning and childcare here in Canada. And today is Early Childhood Educator Appreciation Day in Ontario, and so we do want to take a moment to thank all the educators who are working in the system. Thank you very much for your dedication and for your care in shaping the next generation. Second, the Canada Revenue Agency's contact centres were reviewed, highlighting the importance of timely and accurate services that Canadians rely on. We are focused on ways to improve these services. Troisièmement, Service aux Autochtones Canada a été évalué quant à ses progrès dans la mise en œuvre de recommandations issues de précédentes audits. Nous restons engagés envers la réconciliation et la prestation de services respectueux et adaptés aux peuples autochtones. Fourth and fifth, national defense was audited on housing and recruitment, areas critical to supporting our Canadian Armed Forces members and national security. And finally, the audit on cybersecurity highlights the need for coordinated action to protect government networks and systems, and we take these findings very seriously and are strengthening our defenses. En regardant vers l'avenir, nous savons qu'il reste du travail à faire. Nous prenons la recommandation du vérificateur général très au sérieux. Mes collègues répondront aux questions spécifiques liées à chacun de leurs rapports. Nous reconnaissons également le dévouement de nos partenaires provinces, territoires, gouvernements et communautés autochtones qui travaillent avec nous pour bâtir un Canada plus fort. So in closing, thank you again to the Auditor General and her office, and we will work together to build a Canada where everybody has a fair chance to succeed, where Canadians are empowered to reach their full potential and protect our sovereignty and the people who serve it. Merci. Thank you.
if I could start with Mr. Long.
Sure.
Good to see you, sir.
Hello, everybody.
The Auditor General calls out the Canada Revenue Agency for consistently poor service to real Canadians who are calling for their tax services. What is CRA going to do to fix it, and what are you, as Sec State, going to do with Mr. Champagne to fix it?
Well, first off, thanks for the question. There's absolutely no doubt that Canadians deserve timely, accurate, and access to their questions. And when they call CRA, I mean, it's been very, very clear that the service levels have not been where they should be. So we have instituted a 100-day plan. I was sworn in on May 13th. A lot of the Auditor General's work was done prior to that. And, we have regular meetings with Commissioner Hamilton. We are holding CRA to account. The 100-day plan is showing, I think, spectacular results so far. We've got a lot of work to do. We're up to 77% of calls answered now. We're looking upstream what we can do, whether it's, looking how you can unlock your account. We're looking at AI options. And in the end, look, the CRA public servants are world class. They were there and delivered our programs, whether it's Canada Child Benefit, disability tax credits. I think we all know what they did for us through COVID. And I believe in results. I believe in holding leadership accountable. I have a great working relationship with Commissioner Hamilton. We've tasked him to do better, to be better, to come up with solutions. And again, the 100-day plan, we have 48 days left in that plan. We are making progress, and I'm pleased with where we are. That being said, we've got a long ways to go. I believe in stretch goals. Shoot for the stars. If you hit the moon, I'm going to be happy. But Canadians deserve a CRA that is responsive, that has access, and is responsive. And we're not there yet, but again, I believe working with Commissioner Hamilton, we're making great progress. I'm happy with where we're at, not satisfied, but I'm happy with where we are right now.
Mr. Longdon, can I just ask you, when you're talking about your 100-day plan, how does that factor in the accuracy of the responses that Canadians are getting? The Auditor General pointed out in her report that only 17% of the time are Canadians getting accurate information back from these agents. So even if these call times are getting faster,
Sure.
What are you doing to ensure that Canadians are actually getting accurate information when they make it through to an agent?
Yeah, well, first off, I mean, we accept the Auditor General's report. We agree with what she said. They surveyed 167 people. The CRA, looks in surveys 100,000 people per year. I know she came up with 17%. A lot of them were non-tax related. They weren't specific file-related questions. For example, if somebody called and said, when do you file, when can I file my tax? And they said April 30th. Let's assume April 30th fell on a Sunday for the sake of argument. Well, is that inaccurate information? That would be included. So again, it was 167 people, but let's be clear. We've got a lot of room for improvement. We know it, we accept the report, and we're going to do better.
Ms. McGuinty.
Go ahead.
Unsafe, broken toilets, deteriorating walls, unsafe drinking water. That's how the Auditor General is describing military housing. Would you live there?
Pardon me?
Would you live in military housing?
We're working actively to improve all of that. We made the single largest investment in the Canadian Armed Forces and Defence in a generation. We've made major pay increases and remuneration now a part of the package to recruit and retain young soldiers. I've had the chance to visit about 10 bases over the last several months. I've walked through those residences. I've walked through the kitchens. I've walked through the walk-in freezers. I've spoken to the dishwashers. We have work to do. I really, really want to thank the Auditor General for pointing out the areas where we can make continuous improvement, and we're doing that. We're finding new ways to be more creative and more speedy. For example, just last week we purchased a 37-apartment building in Esquimalt, BC, something that the department had not done before. We're moving forward now. We have a plan to either build new or retrofit some 850 units. So we're working right across the country in all 33 of our bases. We've conducted a major assessment of the needs, and we're beginning to operationalize those. And I have confidence in the team that is actually actioning that now to make great progress.
How do you feel today hearing from the Auditor General that there's some soldiers living in places like that without working toilets, with unsafe drinking water?
I feel the same way I felt when I walked through those bases, when I met with those young soldiers, when I toured those barracks, when I found out that we have lead problems in some of our water systems, when I found out that we have to invest in core infrastructure right across all of our 33 bases, which is exactly what we're doing. This is long overdue. For decades now, governments successively have not been making the investments we need to make in our armed forces. We're doing that. That's why we've made this largest single investment. That's why the Prime Minister announced in June an additional $9.3 billion of support for the Canadian Armed Forces. That's why we made a pay increase for 8% to 20%, depending on rank and experience and time in, with bonuses, with recruitment and retention, and instructor bonuses, to be able to rebuild and to reboot our armed forces.
Is part of that, the $9 billion announced this year, going towards housing? And can you just describe that?
We had in place a $1.4 billion plan, which is being operationalized right across the country. We're looking at new and creative possibilities to accelerate the retrofitting of housing. We're building new housing. I was in Edmonton, at CFB Edmonton, looking at the new 27-unit building that's being built there. That's purpose-built for our soldiers. So there's a lot of progress going on. I really want to thank you for pointing this out, but we're moving.
Monsieur McGuinty, en français, est-ce qu'on peut vous entendre sur les problèmes de logement, des problèmes criants pour les forces armées dans le logement, problèmes de recrutement? Comment on répare ça?
On commence par commençant. Et on fait le travail nécessaire qui a été, selon moi, depuis des décennies, qui a été laissé tomber par des gouvernements pluriels. Et là, on prend l'argent qu'on a investi dans nos forces armées canadiennes, et c'est la question maintenant, c'est la mise en œuvre du plan de reconstruction et de construction. Donc, on y va, il y a de l'élan, on a une bonne équipe, on change un peu la façon dont on fait ça, on cherche des façons plus créatrices, Par exemple, on a acheté un appartement, un bloc appartement la semaine passée en Colombie-Britannique pour la première fois. 37 appartements. Donc, on bouge. C'est une question de revoir tout ce qu'on a dans notre inventaire et le plan est en place.
Says though that you're working on outdated data. Like the Auditor General is making the point that all of your plans for housing, what you're going to need, what needs to get fixed, doesn't even take into account the plan to increase recruitment. So how can you square those two things, that you're making it better when you're not even planning for the future?
I would point out that the Auditor General's report ended, her period that she examined ended several months before this new government was formed. There's been a lot of work that's been going on right now to assess the inventory. We've certainly been accelerating it as we have other measures at Defence and CAF. So we now have a much better handle on what the situation is on the ground. I'll continue to be walking through bases. I mean, you know, to be honest with you, I think it drives some of the handlers on the base a little crazy because I want to see the real situation here. We know that we have to invest in the women and men of the Canadian Armed Forces if we want to recruit them and we want to retain them. And we know that the better the conditions of living, not just housing, but childcare and dental and medical, things we're investing in, the higher performing they are. We want a high performing military. We have one. We're getting there. Thank you.
I don't want to.
Maybe Minister Gull-Masty.
Minister, I'm pretty sure I have asked your predecessor this in every report that's come out from the AG. It's always that the department is failing. Why should First Nations be accepting substandard services compared to the rest of Canadians?
Thank you. Thank you for the question. Really appreciate it. We welcome the Auditor General's report. I think it does speak to two things, you know, that there is that need to continue making that progress. 149 water advisories were lifted in the past 10 years. It also, for me, confirms something that's really, really important that maybe Canadians are not aware of. I've heard many messages from across this country, not just from First Nations, but Canadians, of the importance of really looking at water, looking at the service that we offer. And I believe that it is critical for people to really know and understand that at ISC, we're innovating. We are the department that works with our partners. We co-develop with them. This is where our greatest successes lie. That's what the Auditor General's report also reaffirms for me. That when you work with community, when you use First Nations knowledge, when you co-collect data with them, when you co-develop policy and funding, that's where you earn your greatest successes. So there are some things in the report, you know, that are a guidepost for us. We're going to continue working on this. It is the pathway forward. We will be responding with an action plan, of course. That's the next critical step. But I really want to highlight that this report also points to a lot of critical work at the community level. And that's where ESC is moving towards, that we want to support our partners in the places that they're in, build their capacity, commit to those work plans that we have in place, improve on service. That means that it's based in partnership. But for me, my takeaway in the report really confirms something that I know as a former leader, that I know from community, that when you work together and you really include First Nations people to participate instead of just being included, you get greater success.
En français, est-ce que dans le rapport, on voit que le financement pour le Service Autochtone Canada a augmenté de 84%, presque le double en 5 ans, et il y a plein d'objectifs qui sont quand même pas rencontrés. Est-ce qu'avec le budget qui s'en vient, on devrait diminuer la part de Service Autochtone Canada? Est-ce qu'il faudrait diminuer le financement pour atteindre les mêmes résultats?
La question est, pour moi, je pense que la question, c'est très important de, en premier, clarifier que l'historique du monde autochtone dans ce pays était vraiment dans une position de ne pas toujours recevoir assez de fonds pour leurs projets. Oui, pour moi, j'ai vu qu'il y a 50% du travail qui a aussi un chemin à faire. Mais c'est important de vraiment regarder aussi qu'il y a 50% du succès dans le rapport qui est basé dans un co-travail, co-développement avec les nations autochtones, les Inuits aussi. C'est vraiment quand tu rentres dans cette manière de travail, que tu travailles ensemble pour créer du policy, pour regarder les fonds, c'est là où tu vas trouver des succès. Je veux aussi donner un gros merci à tous les partenariats qui ont assisté notre ministre pour ce processus-là. Je les encourage, nous les rencontrons où ils sont, où ils veulent y aller. Ça, c'est très important aussi. Il y a des choses dans le rapport, mettons, que j'ai vu que je ne suis pas nécessairement en agrément, parce qu'une des choses que j'ai vues, c'était vraiment de créer des targets Ce gouvernement et moi, comme ministre, je ne suis pas là d'informer les communautés où ce qui devra être. Je suis là pour travailler avec eux autres, pour comprendre où ce qui va être et quand eux autres, ils pensent qu'il peut arriver là. That's important. Ça, c'est vraiment la chose la plus importante. Tout qui se concerne le budget, je pense qu'on va voir ça bientôt.
This is not a positive report. It says your department has failed to implement more than half the recommendations from past audits going back to 2015. Do you accept that your department is failing to live up to its obligations to First Nations?
I accept that the Auditor General has really looked at my department with a critical lens. You know, the work that was done from her is quite extensive. I appreciate what she's done. But I'm also looking at the Auditor General with my own lens of really speaking to the points of success where, like I said before, co-development with community, policy development with community, funding with community are the pathways to really get to the goal marks. I see in the report she's asking for faster, clear, transparent approaches to achieving those goals. But there's one thing that's really important to me as a minister, that I'm also including in partnership those Indigenous voices that have to be at the table. We are one of the departments that is required to do that. It is also the right thing to do. And as an Indigenous person in responding to the areas where we still have a lot more work to do, I will make sure that that is really the target that I follow, because I believe and know that this report once again confirms for me what I think is true. You find success when you work at the community level, you meet them in the place that they are in, you build their capacity, that you don't rush them, that you do things properly, and you really support them to ensure that they get to determine what their success is.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's the end of the presser. Thank you.
Minister Hajdu.